listen, all of us right here, we're building massive assets. Course. And these assets are taking us at least 10 years to build.
At minimum, yeah.
And let's say, for example, God forbid you got married, for example.
God forbid you got married.
No. Sorry. Let me rewind that. We're back again. Obviously, it's your boy, MrCV. I'm back again with another special topic. Quite a topic that I've been thinking about. And I was watching something, is an American basketballer actually. What happened was, obviously, because him being a basketballer, he's already got a lot in terms of money, wealth, fame. Before he got married to this woman, he said to the woman that she had to sign a prenup. And the woman said, yeah, that's fine, no problem. I'll sign a prenup, no problem. But then on the day of the wedding, after the pastor did his own little speech, the guy's like, yo, sign the prenup. And then the woman was like, nah. And then the guy just said, you know what, the wedding is over. So I really wanted to discuss that part, because as we're growing older, obviously we're all growing and gaining asset in terms of house, cars and everything. And for me, the worst part for me is after gaining all this asset, you've not signed a prenup and you just lose everything. Because I know a lot of people, they're scared to sign prenups because they feel like there's a lack of trust. First of all, what's your man's take on prenup?
What's kind of crazy is, even to hear the word prenup, as you said, this guy's a basketball player, he's probably a millionaire. But I only tend to hear these words thrown around.
Discussing money and stuff.
Discussing people with you're talking multi-millionaires. I don't think that means that it's only relevant to them. So when you think about it, okay, if Jeff Bezos, who is, the CEO, I don't know if he stepped down recently, and he's, divorce court, half of the worth of Amazon has gone to his wife and half is his. We tend to hear it spoken about with millionaires and billionaires, but the facts are, if you take half of a billionaire's wealth, he's still good for life. But if you take half of an average man's wealth, he may be in massive trouble.
It's not even, he's finished.
This guy's
finished. Listen, he's finished. And to avoid being finished, that's why I said myself, let me quickly discuss this topic so that at least I will know where I am. What's happening is, obviously, where we're from as Africans, we try not to think about negative parts too much. We always try and look at the positive parts of life. And it's fine. But we need to be realistic that things happen. And when these things happen, most of the time we're not prepared for it, because we always believe that it won't happen to us, but things happen.
I think with the prenup, you need to consider what she's coming into the situation expecting almost. For example, is she coming into the situation saying, look, you know what, you go work, I'll raise the kids and do that. And if things go bad, then you have to, give her something.
It would make sense. You actually want it.
Because she's put her, professional life on hold, so she can raise your kids and build your home. So in that case, she's owed something.
Okay, but in
the case where you're both two working professionals and she's not put her work aside, and I think you leave with what you brought to the table. So it depends on what your wife decides she wants to do with her life post-marriage.
I'd say because divorce has become so prevalent, especially in our part of the world, especially in our little section of, diasporic Africans, it seems to be so high. Marriage is a very high-risk proposition for a man today, especially for the average man. The vast majority of guys are not millionaires. If you lose half of your stuff, you're in big trouble. When you look at depression in middle-aged men and things like this, a lot of it is to do with the relationship, marriage breakdown, kids being taken away. These kind of things affect a man's life. Not to say that, it's all women's fault or something like that. Not at all. When separations happen, it can hit men very, very hard, and it's not really spoken about too much. In a nutshell, I wouldn't say to a man, get a prenup, because you're almost telling him, right, in case you get divorced, say that in front of his wife, see what she feels.
That's what I'm saying, because like I said as well, we don't like to think that way.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people don't. I know guys that spend 40k on wedding. Let me even say one thing. This was a guy that we went uni with. He had a wedding, and obviously, the guy only just came to the country like 1 year ago. within a year, he's getting married.
Yeah.
And then what's not happened was this year. I didn't know that this guy, all the suits, watches, he's bought them, but he's kept the receipt. So that after the wedding, he will go and return it. So he now gave me one, like a suit to wear. And I'm thinking, this suit looks nice on me. So the mistake I've done is, the first thing I've done, you know what I've done? I've ripped the label. Not knowing that, because I wasn't aware that this guy is looking to keep the label to go and return it to. So as soon as he's giving me the jacket, I've just got excited, like, oh yeah, rip the... I see my man getting vexed. And I'm thinking, yo, is your wedding day? What is that guy getting vexed for? What are you getting vexed for? Not knowing that my man's plan is, after all this wedding finishes,
It's gonna take it back.
He's gonna take it back. Man's got Rolex.
Oh,
I'm thinking, whoa, because even in my mind, I'm thinking, how on earth is this guy able to afford these things? You understand what I'm saying? But at least if you just called me in the corner and said, listen, this is the plan in it, at least I would have been more careful. You know what I mean? No one wants to think about that negative part of it, because we always want to remove that negative aspect. But is it something we need to start changing as African society, in terms of how we look at these things, in terms of actually looking at the realistic part of it? Because obviously we don't want these things to happen, but we know it happens. So how do we protect ourselves? Do we start changing our mentality towards prenup?
I think we should change the mentality to it, especially if it's something that could protect a man financially, because you have to protect the man financially. If you don't protect the man's finances, there won't be anything to give to the woman anyway. I mean, it's in the woman's interest to protect the man financially by signing a prenuptial agreement. If you protect him, you sustain your children.
For me, I think the hardest part is explaining it to your wife. I think if you're married already at this current stage, I won't lie to you, trying to get your wife to sign a prenup is a myth.
Can you do it during the marriage as well?
You probably can, but obviously with that, I don't know the legalities of that, but you probably can. You don't have to sign a prenup after this conversation, but obviously just something to have a think about. How do you sit down with your partner and explain that? Let's sign a prenup. Because I think that's the hardest part.
I think
it's something you bring up when you're dating. Your stance on prenups and prenuptial agreements, make it clear your stance, then I don't think there should be any problems when the reality sets in and it's time for that agreement.
I don't know,
it's uncomfortable, but
it's uncomfortable because is that lack of trust, but how do you clear that?
that sounds a lot more dependent on feeling. If we romanticize a union like marriage, something that is extremely serious in terms of the impact it can have on someone's life, your marriage will affect everything in your life.
First of all, the fact that she doesn't want to sign it, you can say, wait, why don't you want to sign it? It's like, are you planning on breaking up and taking half of my wealth?
That's what
like,
the
look,
thing is.
if you have no plan on breaking up, because there are clauses.
You know what? That's the thing.
Clauses. There's like infidelity clauses. You know, if you cheat on me, then the prenup is invalid. There's clauses, so you have to be somewhat wary of a woman who doesn't want to sign one, because it's like, why?
What I've heard before is a case where a woman became miserable in her marriage. She's gone off to have an affair with another man. It's been found out. It's been brought to light. Now there's a divorce going on and she's battling to get half of his wealth. It's like, you cheated on me and now you want my money as well.
Possibly.
I really don't think that it should be romanticized. You should talk about it as two financial entities. Earlier on we were talking about who's liberal versus traditional, in the sense of how a family is going to be structured. If a more traditional guy is saying that he's going to structure his family in a way where he takes care of everything.
Yeah.
Bills, mortgage, rent, whatever it may be. And then unfortunately the worst happens and there's a separation. You shouldn't be even looking at the property. The woman shouldn't even be looking at the. If you haven't funded the property, in a situation where she has nowhere to go, she doesn't own a property. This is probably where the prenup conversation kind of came from. I mean, at one point they didn't have anything. They couldn't go out and work and do this and that. After a divorce, she's pretty much a homeless woman with children, which the state refused to take. I used to get food down the hill. I saw a old guy with a walking stick, not too old, kind of middle aged with a walking stick. And he's asking me for £1. He's like, sorry, have you got £1? I must have given him £1 and I asked him, I do this to homeless people, so I stopped like, not to be rude at all, but how did you get here? Because I want to know.
Of course, man.
I want to know, like, I could be doing something that's going to bring me to where you're like, I want to know.
I don't mean rude.
No, chill, you're
How
right.
did you end up in this ridiculous circumstance?
I asked a similar guy that,
Yeah.
and he said that his missus kicked him out of the house.
I asked
it's
the
not
guy,
a joke out here.
I asked the guy, how did you get here?
It's
And
not a joke out here.
He told me, he kind of stepped out on his wife, divorce, she got the house, he now lives in a tent in the park.
Bro, and the guy's probably spent good 20 years
On
of
the
his
house, paying that mortgage.
life. You know what? This work was
Chill,
like,
chill, let bro
house
jump in.
to a
Let,
tent.
that's not a joke.
let bro jump
No, I
in.
just wanted to say something about prenups. There's also marriage property. Some of the cases I've read is like the prenup will apply to all like the stuff that you owned before you came to the marriage, but everything you earned while the marriage was going on is actually called marriage property, and your prenup doesn't apply to it. So you guys have to divide it. So let's say your assets, you only had $200,000 worth of assets before your marriage, and you signed a prenup saying that this is mine, and if we split up, I can only keep it. But and you were married for 20 years, and over those 20 years, you made $1.5 million. That $1.5 million
is split between.
Let's speak in a sense of modern late 20s somethings that are getting married, because that's pretty much who's getting married. Most guys, even though ideally would like to own property, most guys out there don't own properties before they get married. They're in relationships, they're able to get a mortgage with their fiance or wife, whatever it is, so they own something together. In such a case, a prenup doesn't really apply. It's both of yours, so it's gonna have to be split anyway. The only hurtful thing is gonna be child support, really. That's I mean, there are loads of guys that aren't even doing well for themselves, but they still have to pay child support.
One of our contributors, he's an older guy, and I wanted to say, obviously, you got a property of your own. Would you say to someone to sign it?
First of all, I don't believe in divorce. Right, to even begin talking about prenup. I believe if you go into a marriage with that in your mind, then you shouldn't even be going into the marriage. My pastor said this, it's like you're getting into a plane and you're leaving the door open. When turbulence hits, you're like, oh shit, now it's my time to get out. Even though the turbulence can be terrible, but at the end of the day, you fight and you still make it to your destination. If you go into marriage kind of like with an exit strategy, any bump in the road, you're gonna find that exit strategy and you're gonna use it. For better, for worse, we're gonna make it work.
I'll be honest, man. Statistically, it's not the men that do the divorces. It's the women. You may say to yourself, right, let's get through this, we can do this, we can do this. It's rarely the man. Over 70% of the time, 80% of the time, it's the woman doing the divorce.
Do you think being a good judge of character comes into play?
When you say judge of character,
Obviously, there's an element of trust. You should be able to trust a woman. And can you be able to judge a woman? Like, this is a good woman, and this will last.
People change. People change.
Yeah, that's true.
Seriously, you can have 100% trust, and then shit hits the fan, and you see a whole different side of a person.
The world is like religion and your spirituality come into this as well. Like, if you both believe that this isn't just a contract, this is something that it has a spiritual ramification.
The thing is,
does that help?
It does help in the sense that obviously going back to us being African again, that's what we always use to hold ourselves down within these kind of marriages. That stops us from signing things such as prenups. I've always mentioned from the beginning, the lack of trust is what stops a lot of people from doing it. And obviously some people, depending on their beliefs, whether they believe in things such as divorce, whether they believe in things such as spirituality, religion, obviously this also holds them down as well to say, you know what, things such as prenups, we're going to avoid it.
As a man, I'm sorry right now, from what I hear from the guys in their 40s, 50s plus, you should be terrified going into a marriage. Not to scare people, but you should be very concerned about the possible outcomes for you. Because they're saying, look, it can really, really, really mess up your life after a divorce.
So, moral of the story, would you sign a prenup? Or would you make your wife sign a prenup?
I would say so. If I had that option, I would say so, and I'll explain to her that, look, this isn't like a I don't love you kind of thing. If in the future you decide that you don't want to be with me anymore, because that's statistically more likely, me being protected protects anything we've built, especially if we've had children.
And it's also like, if you don't get insurance on your house, you're stupid. If you don't get insurance on your car,
You're an idiot.
stupid.
It's illegal.
Why don't you get insurance on your marriage?
Especially with all of these bad drivers out
So
there.
are you changing your mind on the prenups? Because 5 minutes ago you said
Your pastor says.
your pastor said, you see,
I still do not believe in divorce, and I do not believe in prenups. But my man made a very good point
no,
that
he did.
most of the time it's not the men getting these divorces
Yeah.
and prenups,
That's
it's
what
the
she
woman.
said.
So even if I don't want it to happen,
She may
sometimes
want
it
it
could
to
be
happen.
out of
It's
my
not up to
control.
you.
So that made me think twice. I was like, you know, why don't I actually just get this insurance for my marriage?
This is what the channel is meant to do. Have an impact already. And if he's having an impact within, that means he's definitely going to have an impact outside.
For sure.
You see that?
MrCV.
Hey! You were trying to dodge the question.
I'm prenup.
What?
For a fact. To be fair, for me, it would say a lot to a girl who didn't want to sign a prenup. There'll be clauses. You know, whether she works or how many kids, this, that. If I cheat, if she cheats. I feel like a prenup is also a good guideline to like stay in line. It's a good like reminder that look, you could lose everything. And I think that, you know, we both need that reminder here and there.
Would it make you more willing to give to a woman that wants nothing from you, or a woman that wants something from you? I feel like
facts.
if a woman says, I don't want anything from you, I'd be more willing to
wanna
give something
her
to you.
everything. That's
I
what you
wanna
want to
give
give
you-
her everything. I swear.
Marriage should be something that you should aim for the rest of your life. A prenup seems to be some sort of admission that this will possibly not last for the rest of your life, which is inconsistent with the vows that you're taking. Just to be consistent with the vows you're taking, I would say don't take a prenup. But I take all the other points. There's the fear that you might get screwed over, and that's where I would say your judgment release to kick in. Prayer needs to kick in. You need to get counsel from your families to see if this is something that this is somebody I can trust. You go on that journey and you stay with them.
So that being said, man, you know, be wary of any girl who doesn't want to sign a prenup, because why? Why are you hiding? Are you a bastard?
Why are you running?
Sign this prenup, Joe. For
Listen,
what? Why do you want to sign the prenup? Look, the prenup is basically saying, look, if I mess up, you don't get anything, and if you mess up, you don't get anything. So just see it as guidelines.
Best
Stay
thing
in
is
line.
don't mess up.
Don't mess up.
But you guys are having the assumption that the girl's not going to be super richer than you. And then the prenup can benefit you. Conversation that I hear women say a lot of the time is that, especially when they have kids, they say, listen, I've given you the best years of my life and I've given you my body. I've sacrificed my body for you. And so in exchange, they feel entitled to certain things. They feel like they've sacrificed in that regard.
Another reason, I mean, to not sign a prenup, you just be like, what? She could flip it on you and be like, yeah, what are you saying about this marriage? Because you said that we've said that we want this to last forever.
Although I
We
feel
said
like
we trust each other, so what are you trying to say by telling me to sign a prenup? 'Cause you can say, what are you trying to say?
That's what, bro, you can flip it. Either way, you can flip it.
Yeah, you can
how you want.
you can vote.
Just to wrap up on this, when it comes to these prenup thing, I think it's a conversation you need to have with your partner first of all. Obviously, we all believe in religion. We all want our marriage to last for as long as possible. But there needs to be a logical understanding and logical reasoning behind it, so that both partners will know exactly what they're signing up into. God forbid the other side of marriage happens in terms of people getting divorced. So we as people, we tend to try not to be unselfish. I think sometimes we need to be a bit selfish and try to protect ourselves.
not even selfish, just realistic.
No. There needs to be an element of selfishness, because when you tell someone to sign prenups, the first thing they're thinking of is, oh, this guy's a bit selfish. He just wants everything for himself. And we always assume that. But sometimes it's just about protecting yourself. And I'll go back to one of our contributors' quote when he says, you get insurance for your house, you get insurance for your car. Why can't you get insurance for your marriage?
Right.
For that reason, I'll leave it there. It's your boy, MrCV.
Mr. CV.
Have a good night, man.